late 1980s, and fate brings together two game developers at a Chicago-based game company called Midway. Their names are Ed Boon and John Tobias.
When I started at Midway, Ed Boon was working at the time as a pinball machine programmer.
They were starting a video department and hooked up with me, and I started programming a football game called High Impact Football.
And I was working with a fellow by the name of Mark Jamel on a game called Smash TV. I was new to video games, and Ed was as well.
John and Ed both had a passion for kung fu movies. John especially. They both realized that they had the same interests.
John Tobias and Ed Boon were sort of two of the chief innovators on the design and art side in Midway at the time. They were the minds behind saying, shock value can give us an edge in terms of breaking into the market.
Soon, the two decide to work together on a new game.
So we had this conversation, and neither of us had really worked on a game with each other, and said, you know, yeah, we should do a fighting game sometime.
At the time, Midway had a hardware system that could support digitized graphics, which was fairly new back in the late 80s, early 90s. And we wanted to really take advantage of that. And we thought that a fighting game or something where characters could be represented very large on screen would be something that we could take advantage of and create a game around.
They meet with an early setback.
We wanted to make, you know, Van Damme, the video game. At the time, I think he might have signed a deal with Sega or something. You know, they said, you know, sorry you guys, but you can't have it. And, you know, Bloodsport, I think, had just come out, and we were all bummed out.
But the release of a popular fighting game helps get their project off the ground.
Street Fighter II had come out and proved successful in the arcades, and so that just kind of bolstered our desire to do a fighting game. It also gave management the opportunity to give us the go-ahead to start work on the project.
So we went into the back, you know, with the blue screen and videotaped some friends, you know, throwing kicks and punches, and I mocked something up in my office, and suddenly when we got this uppercut going, management came in and they saw it and they were like, you know, okay, you know, green light.
When we started work on Mortal Kombat, because we were digitizing actors, we needed to find real martial artists to work with, and it just so happened that some friends of mine had been practicing martial arts for years and years, and they were very good at it. They were the sort of the go-to guys for us on the first game.
So at that point, it was like, you know, a three-person team, and my job was going to be basically doing backgrounds. John Tobias would be doing the character work.
John would design the characters and what they looked like, their costumes.
And Ed would be doing the programming.
And I was kind of like, how did the game play? How quickly were the controls responsive? And what were the secret moves?
And then later on, you know, as the game was getting nearer to completion, Dan Forden came into the picture and started doing sounds for the game. So really a four-person team. Mortal Kombat was just 4 people, really. It just started.
Mortal Kombat is underway, but with established giants like Street Fighter II, will the team at Midway be able to make a game that can compete? It's 1991, and a team of developers led by Ed Boon and John Tobias is hard at work making sure Mortal Kombat isn't just another fighting game.
What separated us visually from Street Fighter, we had blood. It was almost like, you know, an MTV version of Street Fighter, you know, very American.
Street Fighter was really like a like hand-drawn kind of cartoon, and Mortal Kombat's like digitized graphics, but kind of hand-painted on top of the digitized, so there's a polished, digitized look. It had a unique look to it.
One of the first things Midway does is create a story with a distinct cast of characters.
Mortal Kombat really started out as like this whole tournament thing. It's kind of like very similar to Enter the Dragon.
The whole storyline just seemed a little bit bigger than a normal video game, and just something you could relate more, get more into it than a normal fighter.
In Mortal Kombat, they really spent a lot of time developing kind of mythology about each of these characters and their backstory. The characters in the game are really well defined. Just the way they acted and sort of the way they looked. Each character really had its own kind of sensibility to it. Each character has a real repertoire of moves that makes sense for that character. I think you easily found a favorite character when you played that game.
The Jean-Claude Van Damme idea didn't pan out. So we already had this character that was kind of dressed up like he was in Bloodsport, and that's kind of like the whole Johnny Cage thing. There was a character in Big Trouble in Little China, this guy with a big hat and electricity and stuff, and we were like, you know, we got to make a character like that, and that's where Raiden was born. Liu Kang is kind of a hybrid of Bruce Lee and a couple other martial arts stars that we've seen. Kano. And then Kano was this guy with this metal eye patch, and I think Terminator 2 or something had come out recently, and we said, okay, let's make a guy whose skin is peeling away. We ran out of memory. We had to have two characters with only one amount of memory in the game, so we said, let's make a yellow ninja, tint him blue, and we make another character out of it. We came up with Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Then our CEO said, no, you gotta add one more character, put a female character in the game.
Sonya wins.
I said, oh, let's call her Sonya. And we threw her in the game, and all of a sudden, we had our cast of 7.
But what truly sets Mortal Kombat apart from other fighters is also what will make it infamous.
Street Fighter had this feature where a guy would be dizzy, and you would get a free hit when your opponent is dizzy. And I hated being the guy who was dizzy, but I loved being the guy who would make somebody dizzy. So we moved that part of the game to the end of the round, and we said, okay, now just give him a big uppercut at the end. And somebody said, wouldn't it be great if you could, like, you know, just tear their heart out?
So fatalities were introduced in the first Mortal Kombat. Sub-Zero could rip the spine out of a character. Sonya could have a kiss of death.
People always remember the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. It was the over-the-top finishing move. It's like the grand finale.
Wins.
We do the whole dun-dun-dun, fade to black. If you know your right 20-button combination at the right time, then you can do this amazing effect. And then the whole thing is like, wow, how'd you do that? And that built the mystery, and the mystery got the fans' attention and kind of snowballed from there.
It's a lot more fun to beat your opponent by throwing them to the spikes, as opposed to just saying, game over, I win.
In 1992, Mortal Kombat rolls out to arcades, and the reaction is explosive.
The reaction of the players was ridiculous. I mean, we see crowds of, 50 people crowded around the game. People were driving from New York to play this new fighting game.
People play it from 4 in the afternoon till midnight. People would be running around the game, like screaming, like cracking up and stuff, so people got a big kick out of it.
How can you not rip the spine out of somebody that you're playing against and not think this is the greatest game ever?
In fall of 1993, Acclaim works with Midway to bring Mortal Kombat home to the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. A record $10 million are spent to market the game.
It's going to be a Mortal Monday at midnight. The stores are going to be allowed to open up, and there were lines formed in front of stores.
Mortal Monday was created by Acclaim, who originally did the publicity for the first Mortal Kombat title.
And then they showed us a TV commercial for it.
It's the big, kids in the streets screaming, Mortal Kombat!
I was like, wow, this is really big. And it just kind of got out of control. And at that point, we were like, this thing doesn't belong to us anymore. It's just kind of like its own thing. And they sold 6 million copies.
Not only is Mortal Kombat a hit, but gamers are hooked trying to uncover all the secrets in the game, like Reptile, a hidden character. But the success of Mortal Kombat at home brings some unwanted attention that will change the world of gaming forever.
Why do you need to go across that line and produce this stuff?
By 1993, Mortal Kombat is a nationwide phenomenon. In just 3 weeks, the home versions of Mortal Kombat sell 3 million copies, making it the best-selling game of its time. But the very thing that makes the game unique also gets it in trouble.
The fact that there was blood in the game was sort of this big controversy, and I remember when Mortal Kombat first came to the home console systems, Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, and Nintendo wouldn't even let them have blood in the original Mortal Kombat game.
We were